What's up, y'all, and welcome to the Michael Experience Podcast. I am your orator and originator, Michael, and these are my thoughts on my life, my way. So, on the last episode, I talked about meeting somebody more recently and having just what I would consider maybe a once in a lifetime interaction. And maybe it'll happen again, but for the first time, I found myself enmeshed with somebody pretty quickly. And it felt just like super like deep. It felt super good. I mean, just butterflyish and all those things. And then kind of at the end of it, I realized that it was just like a fluke or a slight flare of some sort, and that the person really didn't or couldn't, I don't know, have the capacity to really want what I was offering. And so in that, I just moved on. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have the conversation like grown folks, and we just gonna go ahead and move on. You know what I mean? Because one of the things that I've always held going into dating is that rejection is a part of dating. So maybe initially you look good to somebody, and maybe the things that you're presenting sound good or feel good to somebody, and on paper seem like a wonderful, love resume. But at the end of the day, right, do you guys have common goals, and do you have chemistry and buildable chemistry? Because I believe there's this very innate, authentic, organic chemistry that happens. This like a light ember or spark, and that as it matriculates and as you guys put force to it, that it grows into this like romantic flame or this big thing. But it takes two people who are like, okay, I see the sparks here and I'm feeling the sparks. And you kind of continue to feel that, in your interactions and conversations and whatever else you guys have going on. And so I've always held that rejection is a part of dating, and there's nothing wrong with it. I oftentimes think about my own rejection, or even just, I don't know if rejection is the right word, but it's the only one I can think of. But I think about times where I have maybe reached out to somebody or made my desire to get to know them known, and they've been like, oh no, I'm good or whatever. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I've sat with myself for a bit trying to figure out like what happened when you were rejected the last time. And to be honest, I've only been rejected a handful of times in my life. And I don't say that as a flex. I just say it in that I have not been rejected a lot. I mean, I just can't even be humble or make it anything that it's not. I just have not. But I can definitely remember two times approaching someone, and this is two different ways, and it didn't work out in I guess recent history. So there was this guy in Baltimore, and he's on social media. I guess we're both on social media, but he does a lot more. And so I found myself watching his stuff a lot. I found myself just kind of following like his life stories and life journeys. And then I was like, you know what? Like, he seems like he would be a dope person for me to just like go out on a date with, pick his mind, and see like where he's at or whatever. Very good looking dude or whatever. But I was like, maybe you just got to take a chance. My mother always says to me when I'm nervous about something, she's like, son, nothing beats a failure but a try. And so I've always kept that in the back of my mind as I'm moving through life, because I'm like, yeah, truly, nothing beats a failure but a try. And so I was like, let me just see what happens. Like, let me just see what happens. And so I DM'd him and was like, hey, I admire you. I would love to take you out for, dinner or coffee or whatever you're comfortable with. And I think I left my phone number and said, just let me know or whatever. Very to the point. I don't mince words a whole lot. Just, I'm gonna get right to the compliment of it all that I liked. And it's always respectful. So ladies, gentlemen, and they, them, be respectful. You ain't gotta always go for the gusto, because some people, they just go for it. But yeah, so he didn't respond, and I just was like, okay. Now some people may be thinking, oh, but maybe he didn't see it, Michael, or maybe it got lost in the other inbox. Yeah, maybe it did, you know what I mean? But I believe that the universe positions things as they're supposed to happen. And so, for whatever reason, whether he rejected me on his own and was looking like, absolutely not this dude, or, it just was that my stuff got filtered out. At the end of the day, the desired outcome that I wanted, which was just to meet the guy, didn't come to fruition. And I was like, okay, whatever. Instead of being angry like some people would have been like, he purposely read it and didn't respond, and the whole doom and gloom, like, oh my God. I just was like, oh, okay, cool. I don't know what happened, but it wasn't meant to be. So I really do feel like a lot of people get upset or lost in the rejection of it all, and it makes them not want to reach out to people, and it also makes them, angry when the person doesn't respond in the kind that they want them to. But it's a part of it. So as I kind of move through my journey now, like I understand that physically, there are things about me that people will find attractive. And then even like having a great personality, even having my stuff together, people will find those things attractive. But for one reason or another, there will be a failure to launch or failure to connect with somebody. And I think that's okay, because it's very important to me that the person that I'm spending my time with is able to see me. And when I say see me, I don't mean just visually. I just see every part of me. The parts when I'm angry, the parts where I'm frustrated, the parts where I'm overly excited. I'm a yapper sometimes, especially if it's something that I'm very passionate about. I need to be with somebody who looks at that and says, I love the passion. I love the energy. I love the extraness of it all. And I'm a big, I joke a lot. And so I have to be with somebody who's just willing to laugh, even when it's corny and silly and crazy. Just somebody that's like, yo, you never know what's going to come out this dude's mouth. And so when I meet people and it's just not a connection, or they feel like it's not a connection, I'm okay with them being like, okay, you cool, but I'm gonna go ahead on and go about my business or whatever. And I don't need no explanation. To me, a no is a no. I don't need no explanation, and I'm not about to go down a rabbit hole of, oh my God, am I ugly? Am I fat? Am I I'm not finna go through that. I mean, first mind will have you thinking like, well, damn, did I gain a little weight or something like that? Or maybe my bald spot was balder than it was on the picture. Because my bald spot was bald spotting. You know what I mean? Or something silly like that. You'll go down that rabbit hole or whatever. But consciously I'm like, child, it just wasn't for me. And we just gonna go ahead and go about our business or whatever. So rejection is indeed a part of dating, and you have to be okay with people deciding like, hey, initially I thought you were cool, but now I'm realizing that it's not working. And sometimes y'all energy just isn't right. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes other people are just figuring out what their type is. And I will say, for me, again, being single for 2.5 years, my type has drastically changed, and sometimes you don't know until you know. And so, yeah, be ready for a rejection, but also be ready for that moment where you have to do some reflection, because my type from even the relationship prior has changed. Now, I wouldn't say I have a physical type. I guess my type is kind of broad in what it can be, because I think what works for one person doesn't work for somebody else. So a really skinny person over here might not look so good, but this one over here might look like, give me that candy cane. You know what I'm saying? But also it could be somebody that's on the heavier side of it, and you be like, golly, come on, potato sack. And then somebody else, you be like, come on here, heavy D. So I really just feel like, different things work for different people, and it's all about the person for me. It is all about the person for me, because yeah, I can't just do no one size fits all when it comes to dating. But when I say my type, right, I noticed that there were similar things about guys that I was dating before, and I'll just say it. A lot of the guys were more feminine, than anything else. And so I think somewhere in the midst of my dating, like I kind of stuck with that, and that became the thing that I would see when I'm dating. And when I say see, it's not that I don't see the other things, but kind of like when you get used to something, your eyes go to it more often, or you're gravitating towards it more often. So I would gravitate to more feminine men, until one day I met this guy who was just kind of very metro. I mean, and just like disturbingly metro, and not disturbing as in like his aura was disturbing, but disturbing or disrupting like what I had known before with the other guys. I was like, wait a minute, this is a little bit different or whatever. And so I couldn't really place him because he wasn't on the rah rah side of it, but he wasn't on the hey girl side of it either. And so he was truly like in the middle. And so I was so intrigued. But what I found in dating him was that there's just a little bit of everything truly that just pulls me in. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to go to the farther side of things or whatever, because there was some things that made me feel like a natural woman. And I'm not a woman naturally. I don't know if y'all can hear it in my voice, but I ain't a woman naturally. But I mean, there were just some things, and I was like, that piqued my curiosity. And so even though I had ended up with him for a minute or whatever, I came out of that really just craving the other side that I have never. I shouldn't say craving. It sounds like I'm just so hungry and I'm so lonely and I'm so hungry. But anyway, we're gonna go with it, okay? Stay with it and play with it. So I, was like, what would that be like? Like, I've dated these guys or whatever already. And I may have just had some encounters on the other side. Now, I'm not gonna say I just completely just, but I had some encounters on the other side. I just never like dated, got to know intimately, deeply, never in that kind of a way. And so I was like, well, let me see what that's about, this go round. And so what I realized is that there is really an allure over there that has captivated me later in life. And I'm like, okay, I can do this too. I can do this too. But even with that came realizing that there are some physical attributes that I would have never looked at before. And I'm like, okay, now why is my mouth salivating and why are my eyes getting bigger? Like, who would have thought? And if I'm being really honest, one of the things once I kind of opened up my peripherals or my periphery to, a different type of man, was I started noticing different things about myself attractive, which is crazy, right? Well, maybe not so crazy, but I started noticing different things about myself that were attractive. I started noticing like the tonality in my legs and my thighs, the vein going down, my leg, and then it carries on into my foot, and then I'm starting to look at my foot like all of a sudden, I got a taste for some feet. You know what I'm saying? Now I ain't gonna put no feet in my mouth, but you get what I'm saying. I'm like, now why does that foot look like, if it came towards me, I might not run from it, if it's all right, if it's clean and stuff like that. It got to be clean. Why is it leaning? Why is it leaking? But I just started looking at myself, and then when I would be out in the world, I was like, golly, now I'm over here looking at everybody else's muscles and veins and big old feet, and I'm like, child, what is going on? So it really blew my mind because it was so different than what I had been used to and what I'd been doing for such a long time. But that's what a habit is, and that's how habits form. And so when I talk about a type, I mean like that's just what I had been doing, kind of like typecasting. I had just kind of typecasted the same guys over and over and over. And then there was this other side that I just completely was like, I'm not going to go over there or even or consciously be in that space. And so I do believe that there are a lot of people that after they've been in relationship for a while, they come out of it or they just grow through life, right? Some people are single and then they decide for a long time and then they decide to start dating. And so it's kind of like this self-discovery and fact-finding thing to figure out what it is that you like at this stage of your life. And so I do believe that there are some people who are finding their way that way, and it truly just does not feel good to the person on the other end of it. And that's just that's the reality of it. Sometimes I think the hurt that we experience or the letdown that we experience when we get excited about somebody is truly unintentional. I think a lot of it is unintentional. Like they wasted our time, and why would you say you wanted a relationship if you really didn't want one? There's a population of people who absolutely play games, knowing, but I think there is a population of people as well that are just finding their way, and for whatever reason, they don't voice that they are just finding their way. And that's a couple of things, right? Like obviously it feels shameful to some people to be of a particular age. And I'm gonna raise my hand. Y'all can't see it, but I'm pushing 40. And so I think people that are, up there and beyond probably are like, I should know better by now. what I'm looking for. And so sometimes it is just the embarrassing part of not wanting to say, like, yo, I'm just trying to figure it out. And it's the embarrassing part of that, or it's a part of like, if I do say that, they're gonna think I'm like the go with the flow boys and gals and they them. And I'm just here to just fuck off when really I'm just trying to find my rhythm in dating. So they won't say it for that reason as well. But I mean, it could be a litany of things: emotional unavailability, emotional immaturity. It could be a number of things. But the point is, there are people that I feel like unintentionally will come into a situation and let you down. And I think that's a part of life too. Everybody's going to let somebody down. We're all somebody's disappointment. I firmly believe that saying. But I don't even think the issue for me is the letdown itself. I think the thing for me is how the letdown happens, because there's a sense of responsibility that I think everyone should have in a relationship on both sides, or situationship or dynamic or connection or whatever you want to call it. For those of you that like to, split hairs and be untoward about words and stuff like that. But I think there's just a responsibility that if you notice a shift in communication or energy, you say something. And if you're the person that is having the shift, you should say something as well. But it takes two people to kind of run through a dynamic, course correct, or sometimes separate, right? So I believe, a lot of it is, enough of it is unintentional, but the part that we own as human beings is if we see something, say something, and that is everybody in the situation. I can't tell you how conscious it is for me, or I guess I can tell you how conscious of an effort it is for me to walk away from a situation or to put things on the table as quickly as possible in an effort to not hurt myself, number one, but not to hurt somebody else in the process. And so I've talked to people and they're like, well, Michael, why is it that you think you can get to know somebody in a month? Or like, do you really feel like that's enough time? And as I was talking to one of my friends here recently, he was like, you just don't know. I said, you do know. I said, you do know. It doesn't take you that long to know if you have organic chemistry with somebody. It doesn't take you an absorbent amount of time to know if somebody's conversation level is what you want it to be, or if you're a stickler about style, or if you're a stickler about mannerisms. You know what things are going to drive you crazy and what things are going to make you tick and tock. And so to do this thing where you prolong it, hoping that the person changes, or you're hoping that it becomes something that you've kept in your head, right? Because some people don't want to voice, the issues that come up, because they're like, oh, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or whatever, but I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. As the old saying goes, just rip the band-aid off. Like, you're doing yourself a disservice and you're also doing that person a disservice. And the other thing I want to bring back around is like, the separation or the disconnection or whatever it may be does not have to be chaotic. I feel like we exist in a space right now where people think that they have to get mad in order to break up. They have to get mad at the person or be just disgusted in some way, in order to walk away from a situation. It does not have to be that. Like, that is very immature, honestly, and you need to grow up a little bit if every situation has to end that way for you. Take a moment to sit with it and live in honesty. People who thrive in that chaotic, that let me trump up some things, let me build up some animosity, let me do a slow build to an exit. Those are toxic people who are not who are afraid, excuse me, of the truth. Like, if you operated in truth, you wouldn't need to add extra things to it. You wouldn't need to fluff up things that aren't even really important or don't really matter to make a separation and that be like, I'm justified because it was chaotic and we blew up. Absolutely not. Just be an adult, right? You can have a list of qualifications and it can seem like a good love or romantic resume. However, it just doesn't work with that person. It's kind of like jobs, if you will. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's like somebody can have a perfect resume, they can hit all the bullet points or whatever, but they just, for whatever reason, it's just still not a good, the job is still not a good fit for them. They got the degrees, they have the accoutrements, they have all the things that should make this great, but this role with this particular entity, which could be you, it just does not work. You'll probably be great in that role somewhere else where the environment is different, where the color on the walls is different, where there's wallpaper instead of, wall hangings and so on and so forth, where the landscaping is different. But over here, it just doesn't work. It's not a good culture fit, I guess, as we would say in the corporate space. But I believe that's the same thing when you are getting to know people. And so, in recognizing that and living in the truth about it for me, because my resume looks dang on good, but it just may not work with every entity and every person. And so, the adult thing to do is to be like, you know what? Like, you're great. Like, you're great. You're just not for me. Right. And some people will still feel bad about being rejected in that way. And if they're an ego driven person, they will sit in this, I can't believe you just walked out on the best thing you ever had and da 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 da. You'll never find another one like me. And okay, we're all individuals. So truly, there's nobody like you, I guess, in that sense. I mean, you are you, but there is somebody out there that shares the same attributes. I believe most people do share common attributes. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just about finding the right one that speaks to you on a spiritual level, and a very intrinsic level. So it just sometimes it can look good, it can feel good, it can seem good, but it's just not the one, and that's okay. And so when I say we have to be adults about it and just say like, hey, it's just not working, some people will get upset. And then there are people that will just, because they want to be better and they want to improve their self-awareness, and then they want to be, inflective and reflective about who they are, they'll ask questions. And that's the thing in this dating journey for me. That was a little harder in the beginning because I was kind of annoyed by it. I remember this gentleman, on one of the probably the first handful of dates that I went on. But he was a younger gentleman. He was younger than me, much younger than me, at least a decade younger than me. But he approached me online the right way, very very nice and stuff like that, very very sweet. Wanted to take me on a date. He was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And that's one of the things I like too when you're asking questions about me and what I like. Because if you were to plan this big grandiose date for me, I would appreciate it for real. I would, the effort, but if it's not something that I'm truly interested in, I mean, you kind of wasted your time. So I love the fact that he was just like, well, wait a minute, like I want to take you on a date, and he kind of gave some ideas at first, and then he was like, wait, what would you like? And I said, okay, I love the correction there because all of that would have been cute. You would have spent a nice piece of coin on that, which is fine, but I don't need all that right now, and I'm not even in the space for that at this particular moment. I would have gone, but I'm glad that he asked, right? So I said, I don't mind dinner and a movie. Honestly, I do. I've been wanting to see this movie. I'm a movie kid. I have been a movie kid since they were ripping tickets in half, okay, and giving you the tattered half to take back home, okay, with the license plate numbers on the end of the ticket. I'm that old, and I got a scrapbook. Well, I'm not really old, but I'm that seasoned that I still remember and I have it in my scrapbook. So I am a certified movie connoisseur. Okay. I love movies. So there was a movie at the time that I wanted to see, and I was like, well, I'm planning to go see a movie anywhere or whatever. He's like, okay, well, let me take you, and then I'll take you to dinner afterwards. I was like, okay, fine. Um, and we went to dinner and it was fine. He was sweet. He seemed very shy, but he was really sweet. And then we ended the date. It was cool or whatever. He asked me if he could take me on another date, like immediately after. Like he's texting to make sure I got home, which is great. Love chivalry. Um, but he's like, can I take you on another date, or like, do you like home cooked meals and stuff like that? Because I love to cook. Now, typically, ladies, gentlemen, they, them, when a man tells me he wants to cook for me, I get a little unnerved a little bit because the gesture itself is so sweet to me. But I have just had so many encounters in my life where men have tried to cook for me to be sweet because I do cook for my men. I love cooking for my guys. Like it is if you were to ask like what is that thing that Michael just goes into like this very carrying this very attentive mode, it would be cooking. It would absolutely be cooking, because even when my friends are around, and some new friends that I've met, they're like, it is just so crazy how you check on everybody, you make sure everything is good for everybody. But cooking is a part of my love language too. So I guess that acts of service. I love cooking, and I love when you're enjoying the cooking, okay? You know what I'm saying? This ain't no, well, you eat it if you're hungry kind of situation. No, this is made with the intent that your taste buds are going to be scintillating, and your palate is going to be popping, and you're going to love whatever it is that I'm putting on the plate. So I put a lot of love and care and thought into my plate. And so that's one of the one times that I can think of off the top of my head where I'm very much so like, do you like that? Does this look good to you or whatever? What is the texture you like? I'm very much like that. What you want me? You like your chicken fried heart? You like fried fish? I mean, I just really become a very different kind of person when I'm cooking. And most of the time that's in contrast of who I am, because I'm always in charge, and I'm always like, just, go, 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 do, 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 or whatever, respectfully. But the softer side of Sears certainly comes out when I'm cooking, and I love it when it's for my guy, and I can see him eating, and he's having a good time and smiling and looking at me like he want me for dessert. Ooh. Listen, okay, back to the story, y'all. And so the gentleman was like, well, do you like if a man cooks for you? Now I'm side eyeing y'all, because I done had some wayward meals, baby. I done had some wayward meals from some men, but I loved it for them trying to cook for me. And so I was like, sure, I love home cooked meals. Are you sure you can cook? Now, I don't remember. I think he said he was from Louisiana or something like that. I can't remember. But somewhere in the deep south, and he was like, we can cook there. I said, well, I don't know. Let me be the judge. And so he had just moved to the Baltimore area, and I was like, okay, cool. He's like, I got furniture being delivered, but I have like dining, I have, whatever there. So I hope you don't mind. And I was like, no, that's fine. I don't, it's okay. I don't need a whole lot at this particular moment. And so I go over, house is clean, furniture is being delivered, there are things everywhere. But he cooks. I don't remember what he cooked. It was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. Like, I didn't have to spit it out, but I was like, don't put too much on my plate now, because I don't want to have to, throw half of it in the trash. So it was okay. It wasn't like nothing to write home about, but it was all right or whatever. And so after we ate the meal, drank a little bit of wine. He did get my favorite wine. He was like, is it okay if we watch a movie? Like, I just, I would like to cuddle and stuff like that. And I said, sure, like, no worries. I love to cuddle. But we lay down, got comfortable, clothes still on. Got comfortable. He nestled up on me, because I'm 6'1". He was probably 5'7" or 8", which I don't mind. Whatever. And so as we're watching the movie, I can tell that he is envisioning what this would be like with me on a regular basis. And ladies, gentlemen, and they, them, when you are laid up with somebody and you are starting to idealize like your life with them, and you get to drawing figure eights on their chests and stuff like that, and circles and tapping and looking up at them and peering into their eyes while they're watching the movie. And you're just, and you look back at the TV, you are really envisioning waking up to that person every morning, putting gas in their car so they don't have to go get their own gas. And I'm talking about that for me, because listen, one of the things I appreciate about my ex was when it's cold, because it's November right now. It's cold. I hate getting out to pump my own gas. Now, I don't mind pumping it any other day. Any other day, I don't mind pumping my gas. But when it's cold like this, please put gas in my car so I don't have to do it. But you're envisioning those things, and so I could tell by his body mechanics. I could feel him peering into my eyes as I'm watching the movie, and so I, in real time, was like, "Oh my god! Like, this guy is already starting to develop something for me." And I don't think I want to take this any further. Like, I knew in that moment, I was like, I don't think I want to take this any further. And it was nothing that he did wrong, and that's why I hate this whole conversation of like right or wrong when you're getting to know somebody, right? It just, in the context of, does it work for you or does it not work for you? I think, sure, you can play the right or wrong game, but it really is just that at the end of the day, it's like sometimes things just don't work well with each other, and that's okay. And it doesn't make one thing negative, and it doesn't make the other thing better. And I hate that that's what happens sometimes when, people are rejected or people are told like, hey, whatever. But with this particular gentleman, I watched the movie with him that day. I was like, okay, thank you for a good evening. I'm going to go ahead and go. And so my whole drive home, I kept thinking about whether I should just say to him, like, hey, like, enjoy the date with you or whatever, but this is just not going to work for me. And even though, you guys, it hadn't been a very long time, maybe I think in from conversation to second date, I'm going to be generous and say maybe 2 weeks, if even that. But what I didn't want to do was continue texting him and having him get excited about receiving my text messages, right? Because when you start idealizing what you want with a specific person and the imagery is in your mind and you are starting to build this program, which people say you shouldn't do, by the way, but I think it's human nature. I didn't want him to get excited about my good morning text thinking like, oh my God, he's feeling the same way. I didn't want him to send me, I'm thinking of you. And then I'm like, oh, great, and not reciprocate or send it back out of duty or obligation when I really didn't mean it. I didn't want him to get excited about calling me late at night to tell me how his day was, knowing full and well that I just did not feel the connection. I did not feel the chemistry for us. And what I know he was building inside of his mind, I was rejecting in mine. And so I thought about that my drive home and I was like, ugh, what do I do? What do I do? And so I texted him, let him know I made it home because he wanted to know if I made it home or whatnot. And I was like, let me sleep on it. Like, just let me sleep on it. And I pray on a lot of things, you guys. I pray on a lot of things. And I was like, Lord, what is it that I should be saying in this moment? What should I be feeling in this moment, Lord? If this is something that I am misjudging or something that I am misinterpreting, Lord, please allow me to see it and allow me to course correct in Jesus' name. So I say prayers like that just on the spur, just of like, I need clarity on the situation. And so I said, let me go to sleep. And then when I wake up in the morning, hopefully my answer will be revealed to me. And so that next morning, I woke up to the text messages and the voice notes that this guy sent me. And I said, okay, because we weren't doing voice notes at the time. I said, okay, I have to just go ahead and let him know that this is not going to work for me. And I definitely was considering, because I do understand how some people are like, oh my God, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Because definitely you don't want to, if your intentions are pure, you don't want to hurt anybody. But I also uphold that I'd rather hurt somebody right now in this moment than prolong agony later on and have people wondering if I spent 365 days with them, if 360 of them were ever true, because out of the all after we did all that stuff, now I don't want to be with them anymore. I don't want to deal with them anymore. And questions lead to more questions. And then I would have to be forced to say like, yo, pretty early on, I kind of was not feeling it, but I just wanted to see where it goes. And I don't want to be that person ever. And so I sent him a voice note back. I was like, hey, I just want to let you know that, I enjoyed our dates. I was like, but I just know that you're not the person for me. I was like, it's nothing that you done to me or anything like that. I just don't get that feeling that I know I'm supposed to get. And so I was like, I wish you the best. Whatever I said, something to that effect. Now, at first he was like, okay, I appreciate you for telling me. Thank you for not ghosting me, I believe is what he said. And then I was like, absolutely, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want that done to me. Absolutely, I wouldn't do that. But maybe a day or two later, right, the human nature in him, I guess, started milling and he, was texting. And I'm like, okay, hey. And he's like, can I ask you, what did I do wrong? And I was like, there's absolutely nothing that you did wrong. I was like, I know what I'm supposed to feel when I meet my person. And I just did not feel it with you. And he was like, well, do you think if we spent more time together that, we could figure it out? I feel like we really didn't have enough time. I really feel like I didn't do my best. And so I was frustrated. And it wasn't that I was mad or angry with him. It was just really that I don't know why, as people, we do this thing where we start judging ourselves. And I understand all of our experiences are different. And as I've said before, we are all the sum of our experiences, okay? And but I was just like, why is this dude really going down this rabbit hole of this? I already told you, it just I didn't feel us having a connection and I didn't want to, lead you on. So why are you now asking me all these questions about what did you do wrong and you feel like you didn't show up as your best and all of these things? And so I did get a little bit frustrated in that moment, but my need for him to understand that this was a me situation as opposed to him as in terms of like why I needed to go in a different direction. I needed him to understand that. So instead of just making it confrontational or just making up some things about him, I said, listen, like you are great. You have some great attributes that somebody is going to love. They are going to love. I was like, but there, I was like, if you haven't experienced it yet, I was like, there is an intuition and a sixth sense that everybody has, and you kind of just know when you're in that person's energy if it's going to be somebody. So I don't want to prolong this and say, okay, let's do 2 months of us dating and hope that it comes when I know for a fact that it's just not going to happen. Like it just isn't there. So I don't want you to think you did anything wrong. You continue to be you. Anyway, something along those lines. I sent the gentleman or whatever, and he was just like, okay, thank you. And I thought that that was it at the end of the day. But then a couple of days after, I got another text message with a barrage of questions. And then at that point, I said, listen, I'm not about to do this with you. I'm not about to do this with you. Listen, go date people, be great. You're going to do amazing, but we're not going to do that. And so I say that to say is rejection again is hard for a lot of people, and without knowing the other side of the situation every time, which is what the other person is feeling. Like people can tell you stories about their dating and you can make some assumptions, generalizations, and some associations based on, intersectional experiences, but you don't 100% know how that person feels. You may have an idea, but you don't know exactly what's in that person's head and in that person's heart and how that rejection has triggered them. But the ownership that you have is still when you see something, when you notice something, that you have to say something. And so that was one of those moments for me very early in my dating where I kind of formed this foundation of when I know, when I know you will know. And that's either good or bad, right? Because sometimes we move about with people and we assume because we are there and participating that they know the value and the stock that we're putting into it. You know what I'm saying? They know how excited we are. They know how much we want to be here just because I've shown up. And that's not always the case. Sometimes because we communicate differently, we send and encode communication differently. Um, we see things different. And so for me, it's important for me to affirm whatever as we move through the situation. So if I'm enjoying spending time with you, I will say I'm really loving our conversations on the phone. Like I really love that we can have these deep moments, because I think that's important. Because when you're dating, I think we're really all doing the best that we can and showing up as the best that we are. Some of us lie, some of us show up as that representative, but those of us who are really into it and really to do the work in a real meaningful, insightful, and honest way, we show up with the best that we've got because we want to give somebody the best that we got. Come on, giving you the best that I've got. Come on now. But we want to give that to someone, and so we're constantly surveying, whether verbal or nonverbal. We're constantly surveying, like, are we hitting the mark? Are we landing? Is it being received? And so to have somebody affirm that for you can mean all the difference in connecting, because somebody could be showing up, and they may have stagnant energy, and you're like, well, I can't really gauge whether they're excited or if they really like it, but they're still here. But sometimes, having that confirmation is really meaningful and powerful, because sometimes you can misread some things. And so what I like to do is affirm the situation either way. So if I'm having great conversation with you, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you why. If we went on a date that was a little bit different for me, I'm going to say, listen, I was a little bit apprehensive about this, but I like the way we did that. I don't know where you came up with this idea, but I loved X, Y, and Z about it, just to affirm that the effort that somebody put into the situation is something that I appreciate, or that I deject if I find that it just wasn't for me. And I've had those moments too where I've done things and I'm like, well, let me go ahead and try this. And then when we finish it or whatever, I'm like, okay, now I don't want you to get excited thinking we're going to do this thing again. So although I appreciate you setting this up and us doing it, I don't think we're gonna do this again. Okay, now we can do something else. I'm willing to try something else, but that was, ooh, Lord, my thighs, my knees, whatever. It just ain't gonna be for me. And I keep it light in that way, but I'm serious at the same time or whatever. And there'll be some people that will laugh it off, and there'll be some people that be like, oh, well, if we can't hike up the mountain a couple of times a year, then we're done. And that's okay too. You know what I mean? You got to affirm what you need to affirm and deject what you need to deject too. So, hey, listen, we equal opportunity right here. Fair exchange ain't no robbery, is it? But I think those kind of things are very important in the situation too. And that is the onus of both people to kind of say, well, hey, you know what I mean? This is not going to work for me. If it's a deal breaker, it's a deal breaker. But as soon as you know, no, let people know, right? Because it's unfair to go 3 months, 6 months when you at the beginning and the foundational moments have already realized that you don't want to continue building no foundation with this person. So y'all just walking around surveying the site. Nobody's putting bricks up on there. Amen. So the house is definitely incomplete. So I think it's very important that we all have an onus in that. I've definitely met people who were at a time when I wasn't in the gym. I met people at the time when I wasn't in the gym that was like, would you work out with your partner? And I'm like, ooh, well, no. If only you knew I don't work out with my damn self. So I surely ain't gonna work out with nobody or whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's not really my thing. You know what I mean? But if you work out 6 to 7 days a week, well, I do now, but if you're a person that works out 6 to 7 days a week and that's a big part of who you are, and you know that if the person is not spending time with you in that way, it's probably not gonna work, then well, just say that, right? Because we could spend 3 months and it'll be like, well, we never have time for each other. And it's like, well, I'm at the gym, I'm bodybuilding, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, I'm doing fitness coaching and you don't participate. And so in those moments, and that's a very real scenario for me at the time, I was just like, oh, okay, cool, or whatever. And again, I think some people unintentionally will stay and they don't want to hurt your feelings. And they're like, well, maybe, I can work around it or whatever, because you are good in all the other qualities. You know what I mean? Everything else is good. It looks good. It's just this thing or whatever. But sometimes those are very key pieces, because if you like quality time and your partner's at the gym all the time, always doing coaching, always doing fitness thing, that kind of work, and you're not a part of that world, it can get a little hard, right? If quality time is your thing, if you both, really like individuality and y'all like those long moments of bereavement between, you guys being together, and then you meet up on a Saturday and you guys find something new or common interest to do. That works for you, but different folks, different strokes, like I said. So if you find yourself on the end where you're like, this ain't gonna work, then it's like, okay. Same thing with traveling, right? I've dealt with people who will be like, I'm traveling all the time. So are you going to be able to travel? And I could travel because I travel for work, right? But understanding that our travel would have to sync in order for us to spend time together would have been really the thing to work towards. Now, me, I'm pretty open. So where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm a problem solver naturally. So I'm like, however we figure this out, we're going to figure it out. I don't care, right? If it's a 3 hour flight, if I have to go here for 2 hours, handle business, and then jump on a plane just to see you for 6 hours, go to sleep, wake up with you the next morning, maybe do breakfast, and then head my butt back out, I'm willing to make that happen. But that is not everybody else's thing. That's not everybody else's shtick. And I've been in that situation too, where the person was like, no, I want somebody that can be around me all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, at this point, it's not going to happen. And then the other thing with that too is like, you have people that want you to, I shouldn't say want, but need, desire, have some sort of space for you to be dependent on them for things. And that's a little bit harder for me because I don't want to rely on somebody for everything. So, in that same vein of conversation, if I'm with somebody who is, we're both successful, we have two people who are uber successful, and you have one person that is like, hey, like, I'm not willing to let up on this or whatever, and I need you with me darn near 24/7. Even if you're not with me, I need to know that you're with me. You understand? You know what I mean? I just need to know you're available to me. How about that? um that can be tricky too, because I was in a space where I was like, oh no, do I want to be a stay at home? Do I want to be the person that, for a lack of a better term, is somebody's, glorified assistant? Because I think that's what you become sometimes in those relationships. And there's nothing wrong with supporting your partner and being collaborative if that's what you choose to do. But for me at the time, I was like, why am I going to leave being a senior director to go follow somebody else around in their career? And then I'm on your time and I'm on your dime, because you are definitely paying for all this traveling and stuff I'm doing and everything else, I would assume. If not, we definitely not going to be able to work it out. You want me to come and show up to all this stuff and you want me to pay for it? I ain't going to be able to do that. But that wasn't the case. I believe he would have fully taken care of things or whatever. But and then I was like, well, what does that quality of life look like for me? Like, what does that look like for me? And am I at a space where I'm willing to pivot and find something for me inside of what he has going on? And the answer at the time was no. The answer at the time was no. I still got work to do. I still feel like I have a lot of good morsels in me to give to people. And although I'm willing to travel and try to make it work, I'm not willing to just give up on everything to go follow you around. And so again, the onus on both people is to just say it like you mean it. He told me exactly what he wanted, right? I processed it in real time. I told him exactly what I was willing to give, and he was like, okay, I don't know about that. So in this moment, we both did what we were supposed to do. Now, I think he thought that I would change my mind, but I didn't. And I said, well, I guess this is just our organic end. And that's a line that I think I use a lot now. I've always had a line that I've used when it's time to just amicably separate from somebody, but it's the adult thing to do. It's the mature thing to do. You don't have to have a big blow up. You don't have to cuss anybody out. You don't have to yell, you wasted my time. Part of the journey is getting to know people. And sometimes that takes more than 2 days. Sometimes it takes more than 2 weeks to get beyond the surface. Because I think in those very formative days, you really are learning the basics about somebody. Like, how do they communicate if this happens? What do they feel about this? Like, what are some things that they like on the very surface level? And as you continue, excuse me, to expound on that, then you go into the more deeper things that, honestly, I mean, unless you have a binder full of stuff that has come up that you don't really think about until the moment comes or the opportunity for the conversation presents itself, as such, like, okay, we've been talking, we've been having a good time. So what does it look like when it's time for us to like be together and try, like, what does it look like? And so that's stuff that only comes up through a progression of conversation and time. You can't predict everything. You just can't. And so I didn't feel like he wasted my time. I don't feel like I wasted his time. Now, had we both moved from that conversation and kept going, knowing that that was going to be a deal breaker, or knowing that that was going to create some degrees of separation or put a strain on a situation in the beginning, had we both continued in that way, then the onus was on us. And then, that's our fault. But the adult in the mature thing in me was to say, hey, I think this is just our organic, and you have what you want, and that's all I'm able to give, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think this is our organic ending. So that is how I say it at this point in my life. Now, back in the day, it wasn't so smooth and so clean. I would end a situation back in the day, and I would, more times than not, be frustrated about it. And I'd be like, well, it is what it is. So this is what we are. So let's just call it what it was and be done. I remember I used to say that, well, it is what it is. So let's just call it what it was and be done. That was my saying, like, in my 20s. And stuff like that. And it probably had a bit more sauce on it too, because I was like, you done irritated me, you done aggravated me. But as you grow into some things, and you grow beyond certain things or whatever, this is what you arrive at. And so rejection is very much, I wish there was a better word, because rejection, I think, makes people kind of jump a little bit or flinch, make your eye twitch or something like that. But rejection is just a part of it, and rejection is not a bad thing. It really isn't. It doesn't feel good, right, to most people, because it works in opposition of the goal that we wanted with that person, getting to know them, maybe marrying them later, spending more time with them. It works in opposition of that. So it is kind of like a slight dagger to the heart, but once you kind of get used to that being the norm, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, I'll take that one on the shoulder and go, like, oh, whatever. But I think the key to rejection is not internalizing it so much that it beats you down and has you questioning who you are and what you have to give to people. Also, not letting it make you feel like you have to be defensive, because there's really nothing to defend. You are who you are, they are who they are, and what works for both of you works for both of you. But yeah, don't let your pride and ego get shot by that. Take your licking and keep on ticking, as they say, because we all reject something at some point, no matter how kindly we try to do it, no matter how smoothly, no matter how maturely, as I said, we try to do it. It still does not feel good to the person who was still ready to go into it, who still wanted to do the whatever the thing is or whatever. And so, as I kind of talked about my last situation, that is what happened. It was a form of rejection. And it was an unspoken form of rejection, right? I had to kind of pull it out of him. But the maturing thing for me was to just wrap it up cleanly and say, listen, I hear everything that you've said. And I think that this is just our organic stopping point. If you no longer see me in this way, like there's no need for us to continue on, right? And I think maybe there was a small part of him that wanted to maybe like move the relationship in a different way and then maybe see if it came back around later. Because again, there were more circumstances than just me happening in his life. So I fully understand that. But at the end of the day, for me, I said I can't operate in this dynamic and I can't do the back and forth. And so for me, the action, right, or lack of intention or the lack of depth in the situation, the distance that had been created, I was like, we are still very much into the formative parts of it, where I can either stay hoping that this levels back out to what it once was, or I can recognize the dissension and emotions and communication and just address it in real time and then move forward. And so that's what I chose to do. I asked questions when I realized that the energy had shifted, and it was communicated that, no, no, life is just doing its thing. And then I was like, mental note. But when somebody's communication, somebody's pattern, somebody's energy is different. And I say always trust that sixth sense or intuition that I told you about, because it will lead you to the right place if you let it. And in this particular situation, it was leading me to like, okay, go ahead on and separate from this situation, because that person is not going to do it if you leave it up to them. And so I had the initial conversation to just kind of put it out on the table. And then through another series of conversations, as I was talking about other things, I kind of just was like, let me just kind of bolster in there and see what the response is. And it gave me everything I needed. And in that moment, even though it was a conversation about something different, I said, okay, I know this is what we were talking about, and I definitely want to make sure that I acknowledge that, because that was a lot of deep stuff. However, we kind of glossed over something in conversation, and I want to make sure that we are being responsible in that. And I said, this is what I heard you say, and this is how I interpreted that. And so if this is the case, that's not what I signed up for. I understand if you may feel differently, but this is not what I signed up for. And if this is it, if that's what you're saying to me, then I think this is just our organic ending. And he kind of was like, he took a pause and he was like, okay, I'm just gonna talk to you. I gotta go later. I gotta go or whatever. And that was the conversation. But I walked away from it feeling very good about the time that I spent, because I had a wonderful time getting to know him, and it was great until it wasn't. And that's how all things in life are. And I didn't take it personally, or I didn't take it like I had done anything. Like, first mind actually was wondering, like, well, damn, did you say something? Because you could say some stuff. But then I was like, no, this is purely about that particular person, because you've shown up as exactly who you are. You represented yourself exactly as you should, and you were consistent throughout. And so with that being said, this disconnection and dissension had nothing to do with you, and it was just that person's own personal preferences or whatever they had going on. And so if I can just leave you with that, right, the onus on both people when you're dating is to let the person know when you know. And I think affirming, rejection, dejection, whatever it may be, is all a part of that long game. It's all a part of winning the long game, right? So be okay with somebody telling you that they would prefer this over that, and then deciding, for yourself and as a unit, if that works for the both of you. Be okay with redirecting if you have to. Be okay with saying, listen, this may seem like a small thing to you, but this is going to be a big deal breaker for me because I'm quality of time, and you are acts of service, and we're not going to be able to blend those two things if we have this kind of schedule. Be okay with that, right? Be okay saying it, be okay with receiving it, because I truly do believe what is meant for me. And as I believe in me, I believe in you. What is meant for you is meant for you. And so you have to be willing to do that when you're dating, because it's not going to be all wins. My God, just imagine if every dating scenario ended in a win. We would have endless options chasing behind us. We would never know what to do, and we'd always have a little black book of people in our bench waiting. But be okay with rejection. Be okay with honesty. Honesty is at the core of everything in building a relationship. But be honest with yourself first, so you can then be honest with somebody else. And when you know, you know. And when you know, let somebody else know. Okay. Good, bad, right, wrong, indifferent, whatever it may be. That way everybody can go where they're supposed to go. So that has been the Michael experience for today. Y'all go on and have an amazing afternoon and whatnot. And I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace and love, y'all. Bye.